good, guys? It's ILLtv 4K, and unfortunately, we're coming to the very end of Happy Horror Days, which, of course, for those of you that don't know, is a month-long celebration of horror movies that take place on or around Christmas that we do here on my channel for the second year in a row, and we're gonna go out with a bang because you know I've been celebrating anniversaries, and we're gonna celebrate one of the greatest debatable horror movies that ever came out around Christmas. I say debatable because some people debate whether it's a horror movie, others debate whether it's a kid's movie. My response is yes, because it feels like it's both, but we're talking about, of course, the Steven Spielberg classic, Gremlins. Yes, Gremlins turns 40 this year. That means little Gizmo is actually looking at a retirement plan, assuming he's not like the rest of us and has to figure out what to do, because he blew all the royalty checks in his 80s on blow or something like that, but I highly doubt he had that problem. But the funny part about this is that a lot of people actually forget this is a Steven Spielberg film, but what we don't forget is how awesome this film is and how much it really pushed things forward. And even as you watch it now, 40 years later, it's still an incredibly awesome film, and all of its effects have aged wonderfully. The story is still kind of cheesy but awesome, and the acting and everything else is just still perfect. I mean, it's one you definitely should go watch again if you haven't, and I definitely can't wait to talk about it with you right now. So make sure you like and subscribe. Thank you so much for watching, and stick around all month long for more Happy Horror Days horror movie reviews of horror movies that take place on or around Christmas. So here's one I think we all know, but for the sake of this review, I do have to tell the story briefly. Of course, it's around Christmas time. Father is looking for the ultimate gift for his son, doesn't know what to get him. Father is actually an awesome inventor that makes cool little things like a traveling thing that has all the toothbrushes and toothpaste and shaving equipment that you're ever going to need in the palm of your hands. Real revolutionary for its time. Stumbles across a shop. Eventually, he talks to a shop owner who shows him a little creature known as a mogwai. He offers him $200, and the guy willingly takes the $200 with a smile on his face and explains to him the 3 rules of owning a mogwai, which is, of course, this creature: do not feed it after midnight, don't get it wet, and keep it out of the light. Of course, these are 3 of the simplest rules that seem rather peculiar. Father brings him home, gives him to the son. Son seems to love it. Everything's going great. One of the rules is broken. He gets them wet. This leads to what? The multiplication of the mogwai. Now, there's multiple mogwai, some of which seem much, much meaner than Gizmo, who is the name of the one original mogwai that we all know and love. And it turns out that you're not supposed to feed these things after midnight, and after a while, someone doesn't realize that it's been fed after midnight because one of the mogwai breaks the wire to the alarm clock and somehow knows how a clock works, but that's neither here nor there. And they turn into a cocoon, eventually evolving into the gigantic crazy gremlins you see. They break out and eventually slowly start to cause more chaos around the town, eventually at the point where the son and the newfound girlfriend are trying to catch them, and it's just chaos left and right. And I think we all know how this goes. Gremlins cause a whole bunch of chaos in town. They try and catch them. Eventually Gizmo gets broken out of whatever prison he's in. They fight the final gremlin, make him melt through the sunlight, happily ever after until Gremlins 2, which is actually not a bad one. But this is a fun film that you really got to enjoy because the whole Christmas vibe to everything is just fantastic. Okay, so I guess who hasn't seen this film and who doesn't think it's awesome? This is just a fantastic horror film, but I guess I got to use that word lightly because some people like to debate whether or not this is a horror film or whether it's a kid's Christmas movie. I'm like, why can't it be both?
Where did they all go?
It'll be light soon. Bet they're all together someplace dark.
But I think we should really take a look at who directed this. We're talking about Steven Spielberg here, all right? Like, the king of the hill for quite some time. Shortly before this film, he revolutionized film again with the whole E.T. thing. And then prior to that, in 1975, on his first ever full-length feature, screwing it up halfway through with animatronic, he still managed to create the single-handed greatest thing to ever happen to Hollywood, even though some people might debate it, the summer blockbuster, all right? The guy just accidentally made things happen when accidents happened on his film. And this film really, in my opinion, epitomizes everything that the Steven Spielberg brand was about at the time. It's like what would happen if E.T. and Jaws had a kid. And it was a perfect mismatch of both, but more towards the kid side, I guess. It's just so cool to see how Steven Spielberg had this. It was everything he was about. mind-blowing animatronics, kind of like a feel-good vibe to everything, and still spooky and intense enough to make you feel like you're on like a ride that's a little bit of a roller coaster. His atmosphere to this whole film, I mean, it's just, Steven Spielberg really pulled it off. And I can see why people debate what this is, but I don't care what you say this is. This is a Christmas horror movie, and you can't change my mind. Now that I'm done fanboying over Steven Spielberg and how he would go on to change cinema again with Jurassic Park in 1990, Anyway, really the cool part about this is that the core of this film is actually still a lot of fun. I watched this for the first time in probably the better part of 10 years, and it aged perfectly. I mean, everything about this film is just perfectly done and aged in a way that makes me remember how good it was when I first watched it. The scene where the dad walks into the Chinese store and proceeds to try and buy the gizmo, still ominous and foreboding as always. Watching the dad and his cool little gadgets that he makes are absolutely insane to think about how many of those things are just available now in our pockets, and watching him call on a payphone. Do you remember payphones? 1984 does. That shit was crazy, yo. I mean, it's just a perfectly well done film that encapsulates its timeline perfectly. So, one thing, of course, we have to talk about instantaneously when we talk about this film is the animatronic work. The animatronic work for its time was absolutely top tier. I mean, it was like nothing before it. Completely blew E.T. out of the water, because E.T., while it was a very impressive animatronic, was just that, an animatronic. And while there wasn't just animatronics in E.T. or this, there are puppets, there are solid movement, props that were just wiggled around. The animatronic work was fantastic in this because it was multiple creatures going off at once and just executed flawlessly. I mean, those scenes where we see like the multiple gremlins, such as like the movie theater scene, or even the bar scene where it's a lot of gremlins, but it's not a mass amount of them. It's just mind-boggling how bonkers it really is, and they just make it so that way when you're watching it, it really feels as chaotic as it looks, and every gremlin has its own personality. Some are swinging from chandeliers, some are flashing the bartender, some are just enjoying popcorn. Everything is just so unique and well done, and it just absolutely kicked ass, and that says a lot, because in the 80s, there was a lot of kick-ass animatronics. I mean, a bunch of kick-ass animatronics that we can think of off the top, right? I mean, even like Never Ending Story had some incredible stuff, and it's really crazy to me to think about how well it was just pulled off with such a large budget and for the masses. And I see why kids like this, but we're afraid of it, and it's just awesome.
Hey. There now. Don't you feel better, huh?
Another thing we have to touch on briefly about this film is, of course, the music from the film. The music is really, like, essential to this film. I mean, it has some of the greatest happy, upbeat stuff for the opening scene, and then there's the foreboding scene noise when he goes into the shop to buy the mogwai, and the scenes where the gremlins start popping out, and it sounds like churning, like, stomach noises. The whole thing is just really well done, and it's just an essential part of the experience of when you go to watch Gremlins. And of course, we can't not talk about the main Gremlins theme, which is just catchy and chaotic as the little bastards themselves, which is really saying a lot, because they captured that absolutely perfectly. As far as the Christmas side of things go, of course this film does a fantastically wonderful job of encapsulating and capturing the whole Christmas vibe of everything. Town's covered in snow, home's covered in Christmas decorations. I mean, mom's inside the house making gingerbread cookies, and let me tell you, that's the last mom I would mess with after those 5 gremlins she sliced, diced, and nuked in the fucking microwave. She was badass, possibly the best unexpected surprise of the film. Again, that whole Spielberg's quality. And also, of course, there's Gizmo, the lovable Gizmo. The actors do such an awesome job of interacting with him and making him feel like he's really one of the cast and really a real thing, and all the consequences that happen and all the emotions they get him to display, because again, those animatronics were just so damn good at making him just seem sad, upset, scared, the light, the water, everything. We just love that creature, and we just want one so badly, even though we know we'd fuck it up.
He seems to like it.
Gizmo, look up here a minute.
Hey, you gotta get a picture taken. Smile.
And of course, there's the fact that like each character has their own backstory, and it's really kind of crazy because when we get to that backstory about the girl who tells the story about her father who died coming down the chimney dressed as Santa, it's like, wow, that really shifted fast. And that's something that's really magical about this film, is how it shifts from like horror movie to kids movie seemingly overnight, right down to the point where you get to the bar scene, again, which is like a combination of both of those films, and it just seems like something of nothing short of sheer brilliance in how Steven Spielberg pulled it off. It was just that peak Spielberg moment after we just got done with peak Spielberg, and I don't mean to fanboy over it, but it was just something that really was perfectly well done, and it's a Christmas thing that we should all be watching, and if you haven't watched it, you need to watch it, and if you haven't shown your kid this, why not? As a kid, this is one of those films that really scared me as much as it entertained me. And if you want to know the truth, at the time, a lot of parents were really upset that they took their kids to see this and it seemed like a kids movie, but it was a lot darker than they expected. And again, some kids were really scared of how the gremlin looked. But if you ask me or anybody from my era, that was like half the fun of this film, is like the first time we really got scared. It was almost like a scary movie training wheels for kids. I mean, this is before Beetlejuice even, and it was just so awesome to see how well they did it, and Steven Spielberg really applying his touch to the horror movie world in a way that only he could have, and executing it like perfectly, like only he could have, not to repeat myself. It was a flawless execution. Now, what's ironic is, as you've heard me say on this channel numerous times in other episodes of other things, the 80s was a wild time to be a kid because there was just a lot of crazy stuff going on in terms of what they were selling IP-wise. We got a lot of R-rated stuff. I mean, we got RoboCop. Yes, we got RoboCop. The movie about a cop, who I believe was in the second one, has to stop a bunch of drug dealers by killing another major drug dealer who's been turned into a robot who fiends for the drugs. Whereas in the first movie, he was just killing the drug dealers to begin. It's just really crazy what they were doing, and this kind of epitomizes how that was like a mishmash of what Steven Spielberg did. It was like more of a it was actually a less gratuitous violence affair. It was just very scary and very visually intense for kids at the time, but I mean, I had a blast with it. And I mean, I gotta know one thing: if you have seen it, did you have a blast with it? I don't think I really need to ask, but please comment down below if you've seen this, how much you loved it, and what your favorite part about it was. And if you didn't like it, for the love of God, please tell me. Embrace yourself for any sort of mayhem in the comments. Like, you might make my video go viral if you post a dumb enough reason why you didn't like this film, but everyone's entitled to their opinion. And other than that, guys, I just want to say thanks for watching. Make sure you like and subscribe to the channel. Make sure you catch me every Thursday night at 9 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, twitch.tv/ILLtv4K, and on this channel streaming horror games for the Total Terror-thon Thursday. And don't forget to catch me around 10:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time over on twitch.tv/ILLtv4K, again, doing the same thing for the Saturday Night Spectacular, also streaming here on my YouTube if you want to watch me here. And again, guys, thanks so much for tuning in for Happy Horror Days this year. I hope you all have a happy holidays no matter what you celebrate. And again, guys, don't forget, you're watching ILLtv, where if it's pop culture, you know it pops up here. Happy holidays. You're watching ILLtv, where if it's pop culture, you know it pops up here.